Hello everyone, hopefully you're doing well. In this video, we're going to take a look on how to construct frequency distribution, relative frequency distribution, or cumulative frequency distribution, or cumulative relative frequency distributions using Excel. You can still use StatCrunch from Pearson to construct a frequency distributions, but because Excel is more accessible and available for most of you, and for everyone, of course. I would help you to construct frequency distribution using Excel, and of course, we're going to use those frequency distributions to construct some histograms. Without further ado, the exercise. Use the data set, the first 50 Chicago commute times below to construct a frequency distribution. What we'll learn manually, in order to construct a frequency distribution, you need to set the lower class limit, the upper class limit. So because we're gonna construct it using class intervals, and in this exercise, it tells you to start with, if you were doing it manually, how would you intend to do it manually? The first thing to do manually was going to go because it says start from lower limit zero. And if you start with zero with a width, because they said the width is 15, 0 plus 15 would be 15, but this one would be 14. 14 plus 15 plus 15, that's 30. So that means we're gonna start with start at 29 in this case, and you could continue to do exactly the same thing till the end. So I think that's something you are familiar with. And if we could go 30, that would be 45. That's 44. 45 plus 15, that's 60. So meaning is that 59. 60 plus 15, that's 75. That means 74 and etc. But what happened, we need also to identify this lowest number. Remember, this one would give you 90. That means 89. But when you get to 89, because the smallest number in the data set is, remember, the minimum is 4 and the maximum is 80. So we know the largest data would fall in the last class. So I don't really need to use the last one. So we're gonna end up with 74 here and 89 here. Then that would be the class. And here, that would be the frequency. What you need to do is to count how many data falls from 0 to 14. You put it in the first class, is count how many times. That's what we call a frequency. Then for the second class, you do 15 to 29, etc. Now, because we're going to do it in Excel, I rewrite this data set into a big long column in this way. So I prepare it. It's best, no matter how your data set is displayed, it would be better that you review it and put it in terms of colon. So I put the daily commute times in Chicago into colon. So if you go all the way down, you would see that we have up to 50 data in total. So the first thing to do to construct a histogram or a frequency distribution or a histogram using Excel, there are different techniques to do it, but we're gonna go with the easiest one. What you need to do, you click on Insert, you're looking for pivot tables. That should probably the first recommendation they would do in Excel. So you can click on pivot table. So I would click on pivot, and in pivot, you see table range. They ask me for which data set I'm interested to do this. Because I put everything in the first column, so I would select up to the last data in the first column, and that would be the table range. Now, I can choose to either uh, um, you know, display that the summary or the tables in a different worksheet, but I would do it exactly here. So what I need to do, I can click anywhere around here. You know what? I'm gonna take it here instead. So I do it here. Now this is where it's gonna be. Okay. It's pop up on my right another table, another window that's called pivot tables. You can see on the first section up there, you see daily commute times. What I need to do is to identify what will be my rows. So I select and drag daily commute time to rows down here. As you can see, it gave me the rows, but also I need to do it also for the values. I mean, how many fours, remember we need to know how many fours, how many fives, how many 15s, how many 20s. So I need to drag the same values and put them on values. So as you can see, on the first column, it gives me the row that I can change into, let's change the first one into commute times, right? Commute just to make it easy to do. Commute times. And the second column, sorry, I am not done yet. On the second column where I should have the frequencies, the problems, I don't understand these numbers because you see, we need to find the frequencies, but you see the total is 1,566. You wonder, how would this be? Well, actually, you go on values on your right where you see values. You click on that little arrow. We do value field settings. And instead of taking sum, it's better that we take count. So we said count for each of them. All right. Now it's much easier. Our problem, we don't want to list it. We don't want to do a single grouping. We want to have class interval instead. I could say class instead of commute time. But you know what? We click anywhere on our pivot tables and you do right click and you would see group. Okay. Once you click on group, there it would be a window display. Remember in the exercise, the first thing to remember is that they tell us use. In this case, we need to use the lower class limit that should be zero, lower class limit zero, and with a width 15. Remember, lower class limit 0 with a width 15. So meaning when I click on this table and select group, I know what would be the lowest number would be 0 because they tell us the lower class limit would be 0. And because the largest number is 80, I could leave it 80. But because I know adding 15 each time will make it 80. But you know what? I'm going to go to 89 because I know what was going to happen. I want to make sure the last data falls on it because I already see what is going to happen. And it tells us to use class width 15. Now, I use the lowest class limit 0. The last upper class limit would be 89, and the width would be 15. So this is it. Yay! Very easy to construct our um, frequency distribution. So that's what we call frequency distribution. As I said, I can rewrite this one and say frequency distribution. All right. I can write frequency distributions. Now, what they asked us to do in this exercise, what we started to do, of course, use the data set below to construct a frequency distribution. The first question is answered. They said, well, to use class width 15, which we do, you see 0 plus 15 is 15, 15 plus 15 is 30. Look at all the lower class limit. If for some reasons you still have some very hard time to do this, please feel free to watch my previous videos covering the techniques to construct frequency distribution, relative frequency distribution, cumulative frequency distribution, or and how to construct histogram. Now, in these tables, we are asked also, to include relative frequency distribution and also cumulative frequency. What I need to do, I can just go ahead and go back to that tables window on the right. I drag again the same table, the same information, the same data set to values. Now you see it's repeat twice. Again, what I would do with the second part is make sure they are all counts. Okay, it's counts. I agree. So now our next move here is to change everything you see here into into percentages. Very easy. Remember how you should perform, you should find relative frequency. In order to find relative frequency, usually what you do totals and you divide everything by the totals, right? Divide the first by the totals, and it should give you the frequencies. Then, if you want, you can grab it that way. Nope, it's not working because it's gonna be exactly the same thing because that's not how you do it in real life. But relative frequency distributions, meaning you must do it's like you do 5 divided by the total 50, 16 divided by the total, 16 divided by the total 50, 14 divided by the total 50, etc. So that's the plan. But that's not what we're planning on doing here. We can do it directly using the good informations we already know on how to construct a relative frequency distributions. I'm going to click on my pivot tables, right click again, and I go show values as. I'm doing it on this third row and in third column in my table. So I do show values as, and I click uh, percentage of colon totals. So I will say colons totals would be this way. Here we go. Those are the percentages. Of course, it's already expressed in percentages. And if we want, we can just click on this. We change the title, the labels. We're going to call it relative frequency distribution, of course, if you want. Now, it is percentages, but if you want to change the percentages into decimal, you know what to do. Go back in home, click up there where you see percentages, okay, and you take numbers, and here we go. And if you want 3 digits, you click here. If you need 4 digits, it all depends. So you can change every times from percentages to decimal, but but if you prefer percentages, feel free. I can just keep it for you the way we did it in terms of percentages this way. But remember, the total must be 100%. The last question, because they ask us, include in the table the relative frequency and the cumulative frequency. Then if again, once I click on my pivot tables, on the right, I would see that window. I'm going to drag again. It all depends of how many times I need to do exactly the same thing, except I know I reproduce the frequency, but I can change it because for now we're looking for the cumulative frequency. Remember, cumulative frequency is adding to your frequency, the current frequency to every previous frequencies. Like the first one would be 5, but you know what? In Manually, the relative frequency, cumulative frequency would have been the first one would be 5. 16 plus 5 would be like 21. 21 plus 14 would be 35, plus 9, 44, plus 5, 49, plus 1, 50. So that's how we would do it using, to do it manually. But when we do it with um, Excel, pivot tables. Remember, our goals here is to do right click and go back again to show values. And these times we would running total in. We would run total in. So that's our cumulative frequency. We can say, okay, we do it for daily commute times in Chicago. We said, here we go. That's the cumulative frequency. Of course, I can change what we write down. We do cumulative frequency distribution. So this is our tables. That was the three questions asked. They asked me these three questions. Okay. Uh, that's the three questions. Okay, I'm answering them now. How can I proceed using this table to construct a histogram? The first thing you can do to construct a histogram, I can just go ahead and select the first two the first two column in my pivot tables, and I go inside insert, and you see in that section where you have the charts, there is histogram is right there, or you can see all the long list of all the charts you can eventually see, and histogram is right here. But what you see, it tells us we cannot create that table, that chart using the pivot table. So best way for us to do it and to make sure everything works perfectly, I'm going to select the data I need. So, okay, no, let me select the data. And for me, I copy paste a little bit down right there. And also I copy the labels. Now, because I cannot construct, I mean, for some Excel version, it's easy to do it using the pivot table, but this current version I use, it's better I remove it from the pivot tables. Now I can select these two and go back in the tables, and I would select any of these. So this is for me a frequency histogram. The only things with this frequency histogram, the bars much attached to one another. But here you see the bars, there are big gaps between the bars. So if I double click on the bars, what I would do, double click on the bars, you see the gap width that is 219%. I can just reduce it to 0. When I reduce it to 0, yay, this is a histogram. All bars are attached. But my problem here, as you can see, it's like a big block. I would prefer maybe to put it 2%, 1 or 2%, just so you can see where the bars really. I put a very little gap between these so you can see it. Of course, it's a frequency distribution. If you want to label it, I can put the label axis. Remember, the horizontal axis is the frequencies on this one, and the vertical axis is the class intervals. You can call it class intervals or commute times. Commute time. All right. So we have it this way. And there are so many different things you can do with that tables. Remember, you can, choose to put the line, the frequency like this. Okay. But you know what? I leave it this way. But most of all, you can add the percentage like this one. You can see the way it is. So that's how you construct a frequency histogram. Of course, you construct a frequency distribution tables, relative frequency distribution or cumulative frequency, and at the end, you can construct a frequency histogram. A second exercise, very quick, if you remember, I said the first thing to do is to select if you select your data set, in this one, they said use the data set, the ages in 19 years. In years, the ages in years, the ages in years of 39 president of the United States at the time of their first inauguration. You didn't count those who die, who process those who die, etc. So below to construct a frequency distribution. They said use a class width of 5 and begin with lower class limits of 40. So the first thing, select my data set. I select the data set in a colon way, and I click on Insert, Pivot Table, and of course, and I said I'm going to keep it on this particular, I'm going to keep it on this sheet. All right. Now you see there is nothing yet happened. I select on my right in that new window, age of presidents. I bring it down to row, and I select it again and bring it down to values to count. Now I have the first two. Remember my goal on the second row, second column, I don't have 42, 42. I'm talking, like I just repeat. So what I need to do, I'm not looking for sums, I'm looking for the count. So what I do, I click on the value part, value field settings, and then click on count and okay. Now they counted multiple times. Remember, our goal, we're not gonna do a tables with single grouping. We're gonna do a class interval. So the second step, as we did with the first one, is to click on anywhere. It can be anywhere, right? Anywhere on our pivot tables, right click, group. Now, in the table, in the exercise, we are asked to use a class weight of 5 and beginning with the lower class limit 40. Instead of 42, I put 40. All right. And then, remember that's very important to pay attention to details, what you are asked to find, in terms of 70, I believe 70, we're gonna go 74 because I could go even higher, right? But they said count by 5. That's the width. Width is 5. Now, as you can see, this is it. This is I can rename the first column as age of US presidents, or I could just say, you know what? It is simply I could just say, well, the first one is class interval. The second part is the frequency distribution. All right. Now, on the same one, remember we can just click again and drag the ages of the president to the values and make a second row. So because I need this one to be relative frequency, right click anywhere on the pivot tables on that column, and I choose show values as percentages of column totals. Here we go. All right. So for this one, as I said, if you want to convert it to decimal, you go to home and then check with numbers. Then I can take either 2 digit, 3 digit, or 4 digits, but I'm gonna take 4 digits. And also I would rename it as relative frequency. Again, because I need another column, so what I would do is drag this ages of president to values down here again. And in this one, remember what we're looking for is the cumulative frequency distribution. Again, right click, show values as, and I would go run total in. Run total in. And I said, yes, ages of presidents. And here we go again. Remember, the last row must show the total, right? Now, again, if I change the title as cumulative frequency, actually very quick and easy, we answer these three questions. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but I'm happy with what I got as an answer so far, right? Now, again, if I want to construct a histogram, because it's already showed that I cannot construct a histogram using the pivot table, I can copy paste. I can copy paste the first the informations I need if I want to do really frequency distributions, and the title of it right there. Now again, select these two, insert, and in the charts, I would choose any of these charts. I can take the first one. So again, double click on, if I click twice, or I click outside first. Okay, I put it here so you can see. I'm gonna click on it twice. All right, I go on bars and I need to reduce that gap to 0%. And because I want to see a little line in between, I would put 2%, so at least you can see it. The horizontal axis is a class interval, 40 to 44, 45 to 49, etc. As you can see in these examples, I don't use the class boundaries because Excel do the work for me, okay? So you may not see it, but Excel do the work. Now, if I want to put some line, or if I want to construct it in this way instead, where you can see the line correctly, like here, you know well, that's not what I wanted to do, sorry. No. All right, so you see it. So now we can show data, like I show the axis, I show the data labels if you want to, and we know on the x-axis we have ages of US president, and on the other axis, that means like if we do it on the vertical axis, is the frequency distributions, or we could do relative frequency as well if we want to. Well, that's a second example you can follow to do more on your own. I'm going to try to do one single grouping here. If you select the whole data set on the third exercise, where we are asked to use, it was the same questions where the access, use the data set, the F-scale intensities of recent tornadoes in the US below to construct a frequency distributions, including the table, the relative frequency, and the cumulative frequency. As you can see, in these examples, we are not provided a class width or the lower class in, because this one would be simply a single grouping that we would agree, and we would include it also right here. Here we go. Now again, bring the tornadoes in the US to the rows and bring the tornadoes in the US to values. Let's do some organizing. Remember, in the values, if it's not correct, make sure you click on the sum of tornadoes in the values and value field settings to make sure you use count. Yay, here we go. Now, rename the labels right there would be tornadoes in the US, or class, tornadoes in the US. And the next one would simply be the frequency. Remember, you count how many. If you don't know how to construct a frequency distribution manually, I strongly advise you to watch my previous videos on this chapter so you can follow step by steps on how to construct a frequency distribution, where you would include midpoint, class boundaries, cumulative frequencies, relative frequencies, etc. And if you forgot how to construct a histogram manually, watch the same videos. But here, my goal is to teach you how to use Excel right now to do exactly the same thing. Again, I bring this one down to the volume because to the values, because and make sure this again is count. Value field settings, count. All right. Now, again, I'm not looking for a frequency distribution. I just want to use that column for, I want to use it for relative frequency. So what I do, right click anywhere on that column and choose percentage of column totals. Here we go. You can leave it in percentage, and also up there, we write relative frequency. Now, the last, I can again click every time you click on that tables, that window, conversation window pop up. I can drag down to values the same thing. I just want to be lazy. And again, I make sure value field settings. I use count, right? Now from here, right click on that column, show values as running totals. And we said, yes, it's for this one exactly. All right. As you can see, in the frequency, then of course I need to change as, cumulative frequency. All right. All right. Now we show you how to construct a relative frequency distribution, and cumulative frequency distribution on Excel. I can do exactly the same thing I just did with the values. I can put them anywhere. I said copy. Let me put them here, here. And the titles, all right, the totals. So we're gonna do this one, and now using this information, what we're going to do is to construct the histogram. Let's construct a histogram. The histogram, we're going just to select these two, insert, right? And of course, we're looking for to keep only the frequencies, so we need to remove that one. Right, this is it. And right click, just to make sure we bring this one down to 0 and put a little gap. And this is a frequency, a frequency histogram for a single grouping. Of course, you can use it to do more examples on this chapter. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy and have more exercise. Have fun with Excel. Take care.